I'm Ralph Starr. I'm dedicating this to my granddad, Ralph Starr. I'm the third generation of the Ralph Starrs. My dad is buried here and my granddad's buried here. My family moved to Montana in the early 1800s. They moved to Anaconda. My great-great-granddad, and my great-great-granddad both lived in Anaconda. My granddad was born in 1895 in Anaconda, moved to Missoula, went to the Sentinel grade school, went to Missoula County High School, graduated in 1916. After his graduation, him and another gentleman decided to go on a horseback ride. They went on a horseback ride from Missoula, Montana to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, I can't imagine riding that far on a horse, but he did. He got down into Nevada and went to a motel to stay for the night. Went in and signed his name. They refused to rent a room for him and they escorted him out of town. And you probably wonder why would they do from a guy from Missoula, Montana getting kicked out of a motel in Reno or down in Nevada somewhere. And it was because of the last name, Starr. They thought he was related to Belle Starr, which was a known outlaw at the time and ran with Jesse James. And so consequently, he was escorted out of the town and I didn't get to stay into that town. He continued on his trip and came back to Missoula, went to the war. He's in the First World War and was in Normandy and all the different spots. I can't tell all the different spots because I haven't researched it that well. And he was gassed during the war. He came back, and actually the gassing that happened to him in the war eventually caused his demise later in life. He came back here and went to work for Missoula Electric, which is the early version of the Montana Power Company. And he worked for Missoula Electric as a lineman. And in 1926, he transferred from Missoula Electric to the streetcars, and he started running streetcars in 1926. 1926 to 1932, he ran streetcars in the town of Missoula. And in 1932, they discontinued the streetcars in Missoula and went to buses, and he lost his job. And so now he's out of work, and but he did get to drive the last streetcar into the car barn. This little piece of rail here, which is the track that the streetcars used to run in, it has an engraving on there that he was the guy that drove the last streetcar into the car barns at 14th and Catlin. And it was presented to him when he was mayor. I'm stepping ahead here a little bit, but it was presented to him. He was in the hospital, and there you see the hunk of rail. That's that one there. It was presented to him in 1948. So that was quite a few years after they last tore all the cobblestones out of the city streets in Missoula. And when they did that, they took the rails out, and that's when they cut these strips and gave them to different people.
When did they take the rails out?
It was must have been in the late 40s. Because when I was a little kid, the rails were still in the ground and, on Higgins Avenue. And actually, one of the tracks ran out and ran around the oval at the University of Montana. That was the turnaround spot, was the oval at the University of Montana. At that time, he went and ran for Justice of the Peace for Hellgate Township. And he took and won 8 consecutive turns as Justice of the Peace at the Hellgate Township here in Missoula. And after 8 terms in there, he decided to try for the high spot here in Missoula, and he ran for mayor of Missoula. He ran for mayor of Missoula in 1948, and he took and ran against Gregory, the only woman mayor we ever had in the town of Missoula. And he won a landslide vote of 4,000 to 2,000 and won the mayorship in Missoula. So from 1948 to 1954, he was mayor of the town of Missoula. Many times he had Indians from the Salish Kootenai tribe. He was an honorary chief of the Salish Kootenai tribe, both while he was Justice of the Peace and while he was mayor. He was an honorary chief of the Indian tribe up in St. Ignatius. And he many times brought them down and rode in parades. This happened to be a picture of him and Al Jungers, which used to be street commissioner here in Missoula. And That's them riding in the parade. I also have a picture of him and an Indian chief from up on the Salish Kootenai tribe riding in the parade. And hopefully next year we'll have more pictures and more to tell. He took, in 1954, they changed the form of government in Missoula from a city mayor to a city management type of government. That meant that he no longer had a job again. And at that point, he went to work for the state liquor store and started selling liquor to all the bars here in town. He ran the liquor store down on Front Street, about the 200 block on East Front Street. Some of these pictures here are pictures of when he was mayor. This here is President Dwight David Eisenhower before he was president of the United States. This is when he was running for it in 1952, and he won the president. And this is his vice president, Nixon. And this is my granddad giving him the key, Nixon the key. Both of them came through Missoula back in the 50s when they were running for office. And my granddad homestead was up the Rattlesnake on Duncan Drive, up on Collins Street. If you know where Collins Street is, just before you get to Lolo Street, there'll be a road turns off to your right. The homestead was up there, and I have some pictures, I don't have them here with me today, of it. And you see Mount Jumbo in the background. And matter of fact, this picture here is the house up there. That is Jumbo in the background, but you can't see it very well. And that is my granddad on that horse there. As a little kid, probably, I'd say probably 8, 10 years old. And he was an avid fisherman, avid hunter, especially duck and pheasant hunting. That's why we got to know the Indians up on the reservation, along with being mayor and being justice of the peace. And we got to go up there and hunt on the reservation all the time. He's a great fisherman. I have never learned his trait. He could go out fishing with a fly rod, and I never seen him come home without a reel full of fish. And he fished both out on the coast, up Rock Creek, up Lolo Creek, and up the Jocko. My grandmother passed away in 1950, and that was a fishing trip that we took up to the Jocko. She had a heart attack moving stuff from the kitchen, the picnic table to the car, and I was only what would it be, 8 years old at the time. Of course, I didn't know what had happened, but she passed away a couple days later. But at that time, from the Jocko to Missoula here was a 1-hour drive. Now you know how long it takes you to get to Arley, and Jocko isn't very far out of Arley. But at that time, it was a 1-hour drive from up there. And we brought her back here, and she survived about 2 days and passed away. My aunt, which is also buried here, worked for Patterson Marcello, Patterson and Marcello. And Patterson used to be a district judge here in Missoula. And on the back side of this stone is my dad. He just passed away 3 months ago. And my mom is also on the back side. And that's pretty well what we, as the Starr family, offered to the town of Missoula in our tenure here. And between my dad, my granddad, and myself, we have over 100 years of public service to Missoula, Montana. I retired after 34 years in the fire service. My dad ran a service station for 38 years, and my granddad, the history I just gave you from 1920s to 1961, worked for the city, the county, and the state. So that's kind of my story.
Thank you.
Sticking to it.